Men are not as complicated as many imagine. Deep within their psyche lies a primal instinct, an unconscious call that drives them to protect, conquer, and provide. But this instinct does not awaken for just any woman. It only manifests when something deep inside them is activated. Carl Jung described this phenomenon as the activation of internal archetypes, powerful psychological forces that shape our reactions without us even realizing it. Some men will cross oceans, risk their stability, security, and even their own lives for a woman, while others barely bother to reply to a message. And this is not about luck, beauty, or even love. The true key to understanding this dynamic lies in the concept of projection. A man does not simply fall in love with a woman. He falls in love with what she awakens within him. When a woman touches the deepest part of his psyche, she becomes more than just a person. She transforms into a symbol, a meaning, something he feels compelled to protect, pursue, and keep close at all costs. This phenomenon is not manipulation. It is not a game of power. It is the essence of human psychological connection. A woman who understands this principle does not need to beg for attention, chase after a man, or try to convince him to stay. He will remain by his own choice because, in her presence, he feels stronger, more complete, more aligned with the man he aspires to be. Perhaps you have experienced this frustration before. You gave everything, offered your best, were loyal and understanding. Yet you were still left behind, ignored, or seen as just another option. Meanwhile, other women seem to make little effort, yet they receive devotion, commitment, and sacrifice. This is not a coincidence. The difference is not in how much you give, but in how you position yourself within a man's mind. It is not about being perfect or trying to please him all the time. It is about becoming a presence that naturally and irresistibly activates his masculine essence. Men do not consciously choose whom to prioritize. This process happens at the unconscious level, where archetypes and deep impulses make the decision for them. Jung always emphasized that whatever is not brought to consciousness manifests as fate. This means that if you do not understand how to awaken a man's loyalty and commitment, he will be guided by instincts that drive him away, without even knowing why. But when you understand what truly makes a man risk everything for a woman, you gain access to a power that has always been within you, a power that does not force, does not beg, and does not need to prove anything. Today, I am going to show you exactly how this works. By the time we finish, you will understand why some men defy everything for a woman, while others simply walk away without hesitation. You will see that the difference is not in who she is, but in what she awakens within him. If you want to understand the kind of influence that makes a man cross mountains for you, stay with me until the end, because what I am about to reveal will completely change the way you see relationships. Respect is the invisible foundation upon which every emotional bond stands. When a man feels respected, he becomes more loving, more present, and more willing to give himself to a woman. But when that respect is lost, something inside him begins to shut down. Carl Jung always emphasized that the unconscious responds to subtle stimuli, and this directly applies to relationships. Small gestures, tones of voice, glances, all communicate something far deeper than words. If a man feels belittled, criticized, or treated with disdain, his instincts will react. He may remain physically by a woman's side, but emotionally, he will begin to disconnect, withdrawing into a space where he no longer feels the need to invest his energy. This happens because, for the masculine mind, respect is not just an abstract concept. It is a language through which he perceives his own value within a relationship. Jung explained that every person projects their shadow onto others, and in a man, this projection manifests when he feels that his presence is not valued. Small actions, like rolling your eyes, interrupting his words, or dismissing his ideas, create a subtle wound that pushes him away, even unconsciously. On the other hand, a woman who knows how to listen, who expresses gratitude, and who shows trust in his decisions creates an environment where he feels safe to lead, love, and commit. But that sense of security does not mean submission or blind obedience. On the contrary, a strong woman can disagree with a man without pushing him away, so long as she does so with respect. The difference lies in how communication takes place. When a man feels heard instead of attacked, his natural response is not resistance, but openness. He becomes more inclined to reflect, adjust his behavior, and even yield when necessary. This happens because his psyche does not perceive an attack on his identity, but rather an interaction that keeps his self-esteem intact. However, respect is not something that should be demanded. Rather, it is reflected in how a woman sees herself. A woman who respects herself, values her time, energy, and personal boundaries, naturally commands respect from a man. If she tolerates mistreatment, inconsistency, and neglect, she unconsciously teaches him that he does not need to honor her. But when she maintains high standards, when she walks away from situations that do not value her, she sends a clear and powerful message. I know my worth. And here lies the crucial point. A man who truly cares about her is not intimidated by this. On the contrary, he feels a calling to rise, to become someone worthy of that respect. Jung's archetype of the hero is activated when a man perceives that he needs to be better to stand beside a woman who respects herself. And it is at that moment that he not only surrenders emotionally, but also commits himself unbreakably, because he understands that by being with her, he becomes a greater man than he was before. Men do not associate love with demands or expectations. They do not give themselves because someone insists, demands, or imposes conditions. They surrender to something far more subtle, yet incredibly powerful. Jung described this phenomenon as psychic projection. A man does not fall in love with a woman per se, but with how he feels about himself when he is by her side. If, in her presence, he feels like a king, a leader, a man capable of facing any challenge, he will do whatever is necessary to keep her close. But here's the secret. This does not happen because she flatters him or places him on a pedestal, but because she genuinely believes in him. Her silent recognition of his worth activates an instinctive drive, something deep within him, that compels him to protect, provide, and prioritize her above all else. Not out of obligation, but because he desires to. And what happens when a man finds this kind of woman? He feels anchored in a world that constantly challenges him, that demands he be strong, resilient, and unbreakable. Society teaches men to be providers, to face hardships without showing pain, but it rarely acknowledges that they too need a refuge, a place where they can be vulnerable without fear of judgment. The mistake many women make is failing to recognize this silent need. A man may be willing to fight the world, face challenges, and bear enormous responsibilities, but he will only risk everything for a woman who offers him something he cannot find anywhere else, a space where he can be himself without needing to put up defenses. Since childhood, many men have been conditioned to suppress their emotions. They have been taught to hold back tears, to never show weakness, to keep moving forward without complaining. As a result, they build walls, learn to hide their pain, and only show what they believe is acceptable. But behind that rigid appearance, there are fears, doubts, and wounds that they rarely share. When a woman understands this and offers him a safe space where he can express himself without fear of ridicule or rejection, she becomes irreplaceable. And not because he needs to be saved, but because he finds in her a connection that no one else can offer. The key to creating that safe space does not lie in solving his problems for him. Men do not want to be fixed. What they truly desire is to trust that they can open up without their words being used against them later. They need to feel that their vulnerability will not make them appear weak or unworthy. Many hesitate to share their struggles because they fear being ridiculed or belittled. If, when trying to express himself, he is criticized, rejected, or made to feel inadequate, he will withdraw. And that distancing happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. First, he speaks less, then he spends more time alone, until one day, he becomes emotionally inaccessible, seeking validation and comfort elsewhere. But when a woman responds with understanding, patience, and reassurance, everything changes. He begins to associate her presence with peace rather than pressure. Men are drawn to women who allow them to be their true selves. A woman who fuels his dreams, who believes in him even when he doubts himself, is a woman he values deeply and definitively. This does not mean solving his problems or carrying his burdens. It means being a steady presence, a silent pillar of strength and stability. And when he finds that, there are no limits to what he will do to keep her by his side. The true bond between a man and a woman is not solely based on physical attraction or the convenience of being together. It is born from something much deeper, the profound sense that, by their side, one can truly be themselves. It is not about offering immediate solutions or trying to fix the other person. A woman's strength lies in her ability to listen without judgment, to remind a man of his worth without diminishing his struggles. Carl Jung described this dynamic as the integration of the feminine and masculine within the human psyche, a relationship where both individuals empower each other rather than seeking to control or suppress one another. But here lies a crucial point. Providing emotional support and security does not mean tolerating mistreatment or assuming the role of a therapist for a man who refuses to grow. A relationship should not be a dumping ground for problems or a refuge for someone who never gives back. Instead, it should be a space where both individuals feel safe to express themselves without fear, where truth can be spoken openly without one having to hide from the other. This kind of emotional security not only strengthens a relationship, but also deepens intimacy, builds trust, and makes a man truly commit. A man may feel physically attracted to many women, but he will only risk everything for the one who sees beyond the surface, the one who understands his silent struggles and makes him feel that he is enough, not just as a provider, but as a human being. When a man finds that emotional sanctuary, he will do whatever it takes to keep that woman by his side. Men are naturally wired to pursue, conquer, and cherish what they perceive as rare and meaningful. If something is given to them effortlessly without challenge, its value unconsciously diminishes in their eyes. This does not mean that a woman should manipulate or play with a man's emotions. Rather, she must understand the delicate balance between mystery and appreciation. A woman who masters this skill possesses a unique power over a man's heart. She creates a sense of excitement, curiosity, and challenge while simultaneously making him feel deeply valued. This combination is irresistible because it activates two fundamental impulses in his mind: the desire to conquer and the need to engage with mystery. However, this does not stem from mind games but from depth. A man should never feel that he has fully figured out a woman, that there is nothing left to explore. When a woman maintains her individuality, when she has a life beyond a relationship, her own dreams, passions, and personal growth, she remains intriguing. He feels drawn to her because there is always something new to discover. Jung explained that the human unconscious is constantly seeking the unknown, that which challenges and expands our perception. When a woman becomes a living mystery, not because she hides things, but because she is in constant evolution, a man feels a need to keep investing in her. The fatal mistake occurs when a woman abandons her individuality to mold herself entirely around the man. The moment she sets aside her interests, passions, and essence to exist solely for him, the mystery disappears, and with it, the deep excitement. A man may admire a woman who gives herself completely, but without the element of individuality, fascination fades. This is precisely why the most intense and long-lasting relationships are those where both partners continue to grow as individuals, because it is in this continuous growth that the true power lies. The power to keep a man committed, passionate, and willing to risk everything to keep that connection alive. Mystery may spark a man's interest, but on its own, it is not enough to keep him committed. The true bond happens when that mystery is balanced with something equally essential: appreciation. Men may appear strong, confident, and unshakable, but deep down, they crave validation just like anyone else. They need to know that their efforts are recognized, that their actions make a difference, and that they add value to the life of the woman they love. Jung described this need as a reflection of the human psyche's search for meaning. A man who feels that his presence matters becomes a man willing to give more, to invest more, and to commit fully. Small gestures of gratitude, acknowledging a kind act, expressing appreciation for a moment of support, or simply showing that he is noticed, activate his natural instinct to want to do even more. When a man feels like a hero in the presence of a woman, he is inspired to improve himself, to become an even better version of who he is. But here is where many women make a crucial mistake. They tend to go to one extreme or the other. Some become excessively distant, inaccessible, and too mysterious, creating a cold seduction game where the man may feel intrigued at first, but eventually grows tired of the lack of reciprocity. Others, on the contrary, give everything too soon. They sacrifice their individuality, chase his attention relentlessly, and unknowingly become predictable, too easy to take for granted. The secret does not lie at either extreme, but in the balance between maintaining curiosity and, at the same time, making him feel respected and valued. A man will only risk everything for a woman who keeps his heart engaged in two ways: through the thrill of the chase and emotional fulfillment. He needs to feel challenged by her, to sense that there is always something new to discover in her, but also to know that his presence is appreciated. This balance is powerful because it awakens in him both the desire for conquest and the need for connection. He will seek her company not out of obligation, but because by her side he feels stronger, more complete, more alive. This kind of attraction cannot be forced. It happens naturally when a woman maintains her independence and value without demanding attention or devotion. The true power of a woman in a relationship does not lie in the amount of love she gives, in how much she sacrifices, or in how hard she tries to prove she deserves to be chosen. The real power lies in her ability to walk away when she is not being valued. Men instinctively respect what they fear losing. When a woman knows her worth and is willing to leave a situation where she is not appreciated, it triggers a deep psychological reaction in a man. Suddenly, he realizes that she is not like the others. She is not someone who accepts being placed on the back burner, who tolerates neglect, or who settles for crumbs. At that moment, he faces a choice: to rise to the occasion and give her what she truly deserves, or to lose her forever. The male mind is naturally competitive, driven by the need to conquer and preserve what it perceives as valuable. If a woman shows that she will not accept inconsistency, lack of effort, or disrespect, she becomes a rare and precious prize in his eyes. When she makes it clear that she is not afraid to be alone, that she will not lower her standards just to keep a man around, she distinguishes herself from all the others. Confidence is magnetic. It separates the woman who knows her worth from the one who begs for love, who surrenders her dignity in the hope of holding onto someone who, deep down, is not truly willing to commit. A man may care for a woman, but if he feels that she will always be there no matter how he treats her, he may not feel the urgency to give his best. He may postpone commitments, believe there is always time, and take her kindness for granted. But when a woman clearly establishes that she will not wait forever, that she expects consistent effort and genuine love, his perspective shifts completely. In that instant, he understands that to be with her, he must be more than just someone who is present. He must be a man who genuinely deserves her presence. The true power of a woman does not lie in her ability to convince a man to love her, but in her willingness to leave when she is not valued. This is the moment when the male psyche is forced to confront an undeniable truth. She has options, she is valuable, and losing her is a real possibility. Jung spoke of the process of individuation as the key to self-actualization, and this principle also applies to relationships. A woman who knows who she is, who does not mold herself to fit a man's expectations, but instead maintains her own essence, automatically becomes someone he cannot ignore. She does not make threats, does not play games, and does not issue empty ultimatums. Her actions speak for her. If a man truly wants her, he will rise to meet the standard of the woman she is. If he is incapable, it is not her responsibility to convince him. This mindset is not coldness, nor is it manipulation. It is self-love. And self-love is one of the deepest psychological triggers in the male mind. Men are not attracted to women they can control, but rather to those they need to conquer. A man will risk everything for a woman who makes it clear that she is not afraid to lose him if he is not willing to give his best. Not because she is playing a game, but because, deep down, she truly values herself. And here lies the paradox. The moment a man realizes that a woman is willing to walk away is exactly when he will do everything in his power to ensure that never happens. In the strongest and most lasting relationships, both partners feel valued, inspired, and challenged to be better. There are no desperate chases or power struggles, only a mutual understanding that being together is a conscious choice, not a necessity born from fear or insecurity. By nature, men will risk everything for a woman who challenges them without disrespect, who keeps desire alive through mystery and appreciation. But above all, a woman who knows her own worth. The secret has never been to change who you are to fit a man's expectations. The real secret is becoming the kind of woman who naturally inspires respect, admiration, and commitment. Jung once said that what we project into the world is reflected back at us. If a man does not give his all for a woman who begs, sacrifices excessively, and seeks constant validation, he will certainly do so for the woman who challenges him to grow, to become stronger, and to show up as his best self. He will risk everything for the woman who maintains her identity without losing herself in the relationship, who remains an irreplaceable force in his life because she knows that if he does not rise to meet her standards, she has the strength to simply move forward. And that perception alone makes you invaluable. If there is one thing you should take from this, let it be this. You do not need to chase love. You need to become the woman who effortlessly inspires respect. When you put yourself first, the right man will reflect that respect back to you. This creates an emotional space where he feels safe to open up in ways he never has before. When you maintain an element of mystery and depth, he will never stop pursuing you. But most importantly, when you understand your own value, the men who fail to see it will naturally fade away, and the one who truly recognizes your essence will do whatever it takes to keep you by his side. You are not here to convince anyone to choose you. You are here to stand in your power, radiate confidence, and allow the right man to step up. The moment you embrace this mindset, you will see a shift, not just in the way men treat you, but in how you see yourself. And that, my friends, is the true foundation of a love that lasts. If this message resonated with you, apply these ideas to your life. Observe the energy you bring to your relationships, the standards you uphold, and the way you allow men to interact with you. The more you value yourself, the more a man will value you in return. And always remember, you are the prize. You deserve to be desired, respected, and deeply loved. But it all begins with the way you see yourself. Until next time, stay strong, stay confident, and never settle for less than what you truly deserve in love.
Look around you for a moment. People rush from place to place, as if life was slipping through their fingers. They head to jobs they secretly resent, just to buy things they don't truly need, trying to fill a void that never goes away. It's as if everyone is trapped in a senseless game, a race with no clear destination. And all the while, the world keeps turning, like a merciless machine that crushes dreams and spits out frustration from the very moment we are born. Think about it. Our existence seems marked from the beginning by suffering, longing, and ultimately, oblivion. Carl Jung, unlike the cold logic of other thinkers, dared to look into the depths of the human psyche without illusion. To him, being alive wasn't necessarily a gift, but a calling, an invitation to confront the unconscious forces within us. Suffering was not accidental, it was the raw material of transformation. And pleasure, when it appeared, was only a fleeting moment, one that often masked deeper conflicts waiting to resurface. Everything we chase, love, status, wealth, is often just a desperate attempt to escape that silent emptiness that haunts us. When we attain what we desire, we're struck by boredom. When we don't, we sink into frustration. And the cruelest part? In the end, none of it matters, because death awaits as the great equalizer, indifferent to our pain or triumphs. And this isn't just theory. It's a pattern confirmed daily by the fabric of human history. plagues that show no mercy, endless wars, people who fight a lifetime just to survive on crumbs of happiness. Suffering is at the root of our shared experience, and pretending otherwise is self-deception. That's why, in this reflection, we'll dive into the brutal yet illuminating vision of Carl Jung. We'll explore why our existence appears to be woven with suffering. And if these kinds of ideas stir something deep within you, stay with us, because what follows may change the way you see your own life. Picture for a moment a dog chasing its own tail. It strains, spins, stretches, nearly grabs it, but never quite. And if by chance it does catch it, there's a flicker of relief, followed by discomfort, and then the cycle begins again. Now replace the dog with any human being, and the tail with what we call happiness. That's the pattern of life, a relentless pursuit of something that, once attained, rarely satisfies us for long. Jung understood this as an archetypal truth. Our desires arise from the unconscious, a realm governed by forces we barely understand. And these forces push us to seek what we lack, never letting us rest. We want money because we fear scarcity. We want love because we feel isolated. We crave recognition because we dread insignificance. The very act of desiring reveals a fracture within us. And suppose, through some miracle or Herculean effort, you finally attain what you've longed for. You buy that car, win that love that once seemed unreachable, or taste success. What happens then? The initial thrill is powerful, but brief. It quickly fades, and in its place emerges a new emptiness that pushes you to chase something else. Yesterday, you wanted a car. Today, you crave admiration. The cycle never ends. Jung saw this as a reflection of the psyche's restlessness. The human being is caught between the pain of longing and the void of fulfillment. We oscillate between despair and apathy. There's no fixed point of lasting peace. Just look around. How often do we hear of celebrities who seem to have everything: wealth, fame, admiration, yet fell into depression? Even the most celebrated souls, those who made the world laugh or traveled its wonders, were not spared. Their outer success could not silence the inner chaos. Jung wouldn't be surprised. He knew that riches and popularity are shadows, projections of a deeper yearning that cannot be satisfied externally. Wealth, as he might say, is like seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. And modern neuroscience only reinforces this ancient insight. Our brain is wired for pursuit, not contentment. The dopamine system that gives us pleasure does so during the chase, not the reward. It promises satisfaction while we're striving, but once the goal is reached, the joy dissolves. What's left is a reset, an endless loop. That's why people become addicted to games, substances, attention, because these offer a temporary illusion that the next hit might finally bring fullness. But in reality, we remain trapped, like lab mice, running in a never-ending maze. So, if life feels like a machine designed to frustrate us, how should we respond? Jung offered no easy comfort. The answer lies not in escape, but in inner work, in becoming conscious of the unconscious. The less we blindly pursue, the less we suffer. It sounds simple, but it requires deep awareness. Our nature itself seems tuned to pain. From birth, fragile, vulnerable, we are exposed to fear, hunger, cold. As we grow, we are conditioned to chase approval, security, status, an endless quest with no lasting reward. And as we age, we watch the body decay, memories fade, loved ones vanish. Many die alone, slowly and in pain. No living being escapes this fate. Nature demands we exist, and then destroys us without remorse. If nature were just or kind, how could we explain the existence of horrific diseases? How do we justify the suffering of infants who die in agony, of people trapped in broken bodies, enduring pain with no end? Jung knew the psyche well enough to understand. Suffering is not an accident. It is an invitation. Modern biology aligns with this. Life is driven by survival instincts, and those instincts produce suffering. Without hunger, fear, or longing, we wouldn't move. Without desire or anxiety, we wouldn't strive. Pain is the glue that holds life together, but it's also what keeps us enslaved. So if nature shows us no mercy, if we're just disposable parts in its system, what are we left with? Humanity has always tried to escape this truth. Religion, for instance, has served as the ultimate painkiller. Promising heaven, divine justice, or cosmic meaning has offered comfort to countless people in pain. But Jung, while deeply spiritual, also knew the danger of illusions. He believed that religion, at its worst, could become a crutch, a defense mechanism for those unable to face the truth within. We need to believe there is purpose behind the suffering, that justice awaits, that pain has meaning, because accepting the absurdity of it all would break us. Yet the truth remains. No one watches us from above. No cosmic judge awaits to balance the scales. The pain we endure has no intrinsic purpose. It is simply the cost of being alive. When religion begins to waver in modern society, something else takes its place: progress. We're taught that life has meaning if we work, build, and leave a legacy. We're told that if we manage to leave our mark, our existence will be worthwhile. But Carl Jung would see this as another trick of the collective psyche, another distraction to keep us from facing the void within. Because let's be honest, work is often nothing more than a form of anesthesia. We spend most of our lives chasing money, recognition, promotions, and what do we get in return? A retirement that merely prepares us to wait for death. And among all illusions, the most powerful one is love. Since childhood, we're taught that love is the purpose of life, that finding the right person will bring us eternal happiness. But Carl Jung saw it differently. Love is a projection of the unconscious. We don't love because there's something divine in it, but because nature uses it to mask our deeper drives and ensure the continuation of life. We feel attraction, desire, and passion, not because of magic, but because the psyche wants to replicate itself. And like every other instinct, love condemns us to suffering. If we're rejected, we suffer. If we obtain what we desire, boredom follows. And if we remain in love, we face jealousy, disappointment, and routine. Even the happiest couples eventually end separated by death. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung suspected. The human mind is built to deceive itself, to trap us in cycles of desire and pain. The brain has specific mechanisms to ignore unbearable truths. When we face a crushing reality, it releases chemicals that distort our perception. That's why we keep living, even knowing everything will end. Dopamine gives us false hope. Serotonin helps us accept what is, and the limbic system forces us to cling to people and things, even knowing it's all temporary. Illusion is not a bug in the system. It is the system. Then there comes a silent moment in life when the noise of the world disappears. Distractions, empty promises, and constant stimuli all fade. And for a brief moment, truth appears naked. Without makeup, only the void remains. Most people flee from that moment. They stay busy consuming information, rushing from one place to another, immersed in social media, work, relationships, anything to avoid looking behind the curtain of existence. But sooner or later, silence arrives. It might come in the solitude of a dark room, at a loved one's funeral, or in the simple realization that time destroys everything without mercy. We are metaphysical animals, and when we directly face the void of existence, the first response is usually despair. That moment of clarity comes at different times for everyone. Some children suddenly look at their parents and realize they too will die. Some teenagers, in the middle of an ordinary day, feel a sudden blow of awareness and understand that each second is a step toward the end. And there are adults who, after achieving everything they dreamed of, feel the void more strongly than ever. When illusion breaks, all that remains is the certainty that everything is temporary. That shock, realizing nothing really matters, brings deep anguish. No one escapes it. Carl Jung called this moment the awakening of the tragic spirit, when the psyche realizes there is no inherent meaning, that all our struggles were in vain, and that happiness is just a brief pause between episodes of suffering. Life resembles a bad play in which the final act is always death. And if we look at history, this truth becomes even clearer. The 20th century was marked by genocides, atomic bombs, and millions dying for flags that soon faded into oblivion. Empires that once seemed eternal rose and fell, leaving only ruins behind. Even those who won ended up defeated. Napoleon conquered half the world and died exiled and sick. Caesar was stabbed by those he called friends. Kings and emperors spent their lives accumulating wealth that strangers inherited. Today, it's no different. People spend years studying for careers they hate. They work until exhaustion to buy things they barely have time to enjoy. They build families that eventually vanish without a trace. Time is a universal devourer. It takes everything we love, as if life were a loan, always collected with absurd interest. Some people can't bear this truth. When they realize existence seems like a dead end, they fall into despair, anxiety, and depression. For some, the final exit is suicide. These are all responses to life's absurdity. And while civilization keeps us too distracted to think about it, there's always a moment when someone dares to look the void straight in the eyes. There are countless examples of those who face that emptiness. Brilliant writers like Virginia Woolf or Ernest Hemingway saw the truth and chose to leave. Even philosophers like Kurt Gödel, after dedicating their lives to reason and logic, chose to stop eating and die rather than go on living. And there are ordinary people who, one random morning, simply stop finding a reason to get out of bed. The void consumes the psyche, and when that happens, there are few escape routes. Throughout history, many philosophies have tried to offer answers. Nietzsche said, "We should create our own meaning." Camus spoke of accepting the absurd and living in spite of it. But for Jung, these were merely new masks for the same illusion. He believed the only way forward was to recognize our role in the play of life, to surrender the ego's desires, to stop expecting anything, and to embrace inner stillness like a monk abandoning illusion to find the self. Because if life is suffering and there's no escape, what else can we do? Even modern science confirms this view. Neuroscience shows that suffering isn't an accident or flaw in the system. It is the system. We don't suffer because of a cruel creator. We suffer because the logic of existence works this way. Without pain, without anxiety, without longing, life would simply not move. Jung understood this long before science confirmed it. To him, the human being is a prisoner of unconscious forces, doomed to eternal dissatisfaction. What he might not have known is that our brains were shaped to keep us unsatisfied. Most people believe they can choose happiness, that with enough effort, positive thinking, or new goals, everything will improve. But neuroscience shatters that illusion. The human mind is governed by unconscious processes, and happiness was never an evolutionary priority. Your brain isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you alive. That means you'll always feel fear, because fear keeps you alert. You'll always want more than you have, because desire ensures you keep searching. And you'll never be completely satisfied, because satisfaction leads to stagnation. The concept of happiness, as it's sold to us, is essentially a biological scam. Biological pleasure exists only as a brief reward, a trick of nature to keep us moving. As soon as it arrives, it fades, and the void returns. Dopamine, that famous pleasure neurotransmitter, isn't released when you get what you want, but when you chase it. That's why anticipating a desire often feels more exciting than fulfilling it. And when you finally get what you wanted, the thrill fades and a new desire appears. Life keeps us endlessly hungry. And if this already sounds cruel, it gets worse, because the human brain not only prevents us from finding happiness, it also torments us. Evolutionary psychology reveals a profound truth about our minds. We are biologically predisposed to perceive and respond more strongly to the negative than to the positive. This is not a flaw. It was once a mechanism of survival. In a world where danger lurked behind every shadow, noticing a threat could mean the difference between life and death. And so, over countless generations, our ancestors evolved with what we now call the negativity bias, a tendency to focus more on what could go wrong than what could go right. But what once protected us now imprisons us. In modern life, this bias has turned inward. An insult pierces deeper than a compliment heals. A single loss weighs heavier than 100 small victories. Our minds scan our reality not for beauty, but for risk, for failure, for rejection, for betrayal, for loss. And in doing so, we become hypervigilant, restless, and perpetually uneasy. The very system that was meant to keep us alive now depletes us emotionally and spiritually. And yet, there is another layer to our suffering, one that no other species on Earth seems to share. We are conscious. We are self-aware. We do not just feel pain. We analyze it, store it, replay it. We ruminate. A wound does not simply heal. It echoes. We carry it with us, sometimes for years, even decades. While an animal is hurt and instinctively moves on, we remain trapped in loops of memory, regret, and anticipation of future hurt. We suffer once when life strikes us, and then again and again in our imagination. We become victims, not only of what has happened, but of what might happen. We torment ourselves with imagined tragedies, possible failures, and the haunting question, what if? This capacity, this inner theater of projection and recollection, has been called the peak of human evolution. But it is also the source of immense anguish. And just when we begin to grasp this, to become aware of this ceaseless noise in our minds, comes the final blow, the recognition that no matter what we achieve, no matter how carefully we live, no matter how deeply we love, we will lose everything, everything. The mind that judged us, tormented us, drove us, will one day begin to fade. Memory will slip through our fingers like water. Names, faces, and stories will dissolve. The skills we spent a lifetime building will vanish. Identity, that fragile construct we clung to so desperately, will unravel. Diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's do not just erode the body, they reveal the impermanence of the psyche itself. The self is not indestructible. It is as mortal as the flesh that carries it. We were never built to last. Death is not a possibility. It is not a far-off concept or philosophical dilemma. It is the only certainty we have, the only truth that no mind can outrun. And so, we are left with a question so raw, so unavoidable, that it shakes the foundation of everything we believe. What is the point? You can run from this question. You can build dreams, chase success, set goals, create identities, gather possessions, accumulate followers, titles, praise, but eventually, everything you have will be taken from you. Every achievement will fade. Every story will end. Every illusion will dissolve. You can pretend there is meaning, or you can stop pretending. You can accept the absurdity, because once you do, once you see the emptiness beneath all the noise, something strange happens. You stop grasping. You stop needing. You begin to watch life without trying to control it, without wanting to win or prove or become. You let go, not in despair, but in clarity. You surrender, not out of weakness, but from a deeper strength. And from that surrender emerges a different kind of peace, a stillness, a knowing. Not the peace that comes from answers, but the peace that comes from no longer needing them. Life does not care what you think of it. It doesn't care what you want. It moves with its own rhythm, obeying forces far older and wiser than your mind can comprehend. And in that dance, in that chaos, in that cruel beauty, you are a brief flicker of awareness, a single breath in the lungs of the cosmos. So what do? We witness, we feel, we embrace the spectacle of being alive without clinging to any of it. We love, even knowing that love ends. We laugh, even knowing that time is short. We create, even knowing that nothing we build will last. Not because it means something, but because we mean something. Because our awareness of the absurd is the most honest thing we have. And in that honesty, we find something like redemption. Not salvation, not immortality, but a fragile, fleeting, radiant moment of truth. A light in the darkness that says, I was here. I saw. I felt. I existed. If something in you resonated with this, even faintly, then share this with someone else who might be searching. Someone quietly walking through their own night, seeking a voice that speaks what they feel but cannot say. Somewhere in this vast sea of noise, maybe this message finds them, and maybe it helps. And if you did that, if you helped carry this thought to another soul, know that wherever I am, I will thank you, deeply, with all that I am, because I believe that whatever light we give returns to us in ways we never expect. Life always finds a way to echo back what we send out. There are more reflections waiting. In the next video, I'll go even deeper. So if your heart is open, stay with me. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Don't miss what's coming. Because it's not just content. It's a conversation between souls. And now, I want to ask you something. What did you feel hearing this? What part of your inner self was touched by these words? Where have you been looking for peace lately? Tell me. Your words matter more than you know. Let's keep walking this strange, mysterious path together. The journey has only just begun, and I'll see you very soon. The most successful ones share something profoundly simple that few understand. It is not that they have more time, more talent, or better opportunities than you. What they possess is absolute control over the first 3 hours of their day, and those hours silently define the rhythm of their entire existence. If you lose the morning, you lose the day. If you lose the day, you lose the week. And if you lose enough weeks, you lose your life. Yet here lies the liberating truth. You can reclaim that control. You can learn to command your mornings in a way that reshapes the direction of your entire being. Let me ask you something that might awaken a deep realization within you. How did you spend the first hour after you woke up today? Be honest with yourself. Did you take immediate control of your thoughts and your energy, or did you allow the external world to dictate how you should feel? Carl Jung taught that the quality of one's consciousness determines the quality of one's life, and consciousness is most malleable in the early hours of the day. Your morning is not a mere routine. It is the mirror of your inner order. When your morning is ruled by chaos, your mind follows. When it begins in stillness, clarity and intention emerge naturally. Those who fail to guard their mornings live as prisoners of reactivity, constantly extinguishing fires, feeling perpetually behind, chasing life instead of directing it. If you remain with me for the next few moments, I will share a method that transformed my own experience, a process that countless individuals have used to rise from confusion to mastery. But before I unveil the method itself, you must understand how your psyche operates upon awakening. During the first 90 minutes after you open your eyes, your mind exists in what science calls the theta state, a state of deep receptivity. Jung would describe this as the threshold between the conscious and the unconscious, a sacred passage where the psyche is most impressionable. What you allow into your awareness during this time imprints itself deeply, shaping your emotional and mental landscape for the entire day. This is why the first images you see, the first words you hear, and the first thoughts you entertain determine your psychological vibration. The tragedy is that most people awaken and instantly reach for their phones, flooding their minds with noise, comparison, and negativity. They hand over their psychic energy to external forces before they even rise from bed. They start the day already enslaved by the collective unconscious, the endless stream of impulses, opinions, and demands that drown individuality. And then they wonder why life feels heavy, fragmented, and directionless. Many years ago, I found myself trapped in that same cycle. I was working hard, but the results I desired eluded me. My mornings belonged to the world. Calls, problems, obligations, the endless rush of doing. Until one day, I realized something essential. If I did not govern the first hour of my day, someone or something else would. And those external forces had no concern for my inner growth or purpose. That realization struck me with the clarity of lightning. I understood that I was living according to others' expectations, not my own essence. So I made a decision. My mornings would belong to me, to my spirit, to my vision, and to my most sacred intentions. Once I implemented this, everything changed. My focus sharpened, my productivity multiplied, and a sense of calm dominion replaced anxiety. But most importantly, I began to feel aligned with my own inner rhythm. My life no longer felt accidental. It became deliberate. Now let me share the exact system. It is not complicated, but it demands presence and discipline. It requires you to choose every morning that your consciousness is worth more than the distractions of the world. The first thing I do before even opening my eyes fully is what I call conscious mental alignment. I affirm silently, this day will unfold with purpose. I am clear, strong, and directed. My actions today serve the highest vision of who I am becoming. This may sound simple, but Jung emphasized that the psyche responds to inner suggestion. The unconscious does not distinguish between an external command and an internal one. It obeys whichever message you feed it most consistently. Immediately after, I avoid all digital intrusion. Many justify checking their phones just in case, but true emergencies rarely hide in notifications. Almost everything on your screen at dawn is designed to hijack your focus. The mind, once distracted early, struggles to regain depth for the rest of the day. So instead, I rise. No hesitation, no bargaining with comfort. Jung wrote that resistance is the shadow of transformation. If you act quickly, you transcend it. Delay allows the ego to interfere with endless excuses. Think of it like plunging into cold water. The longer you hesitate, the more the mind invents reasons not to act. Once I'm up, I hydrate. The body, deprived of water through the night, mirrors the dullness of the spirit when neglected. Clarity, like vitality, begins with renewal. That simple act of drinking a full glass of water reawakens not just the body, but the flow of energy through it. Then comes the most transformative practice of all, movement. I am not speaking of exhausting physical routines, but of intentional activity, stretching, walking, breathing deeply, awakening the life force within. Movement dissolves stagnation, both physical and psychological. Jung often reminded his students that the psyche is embodied. The spirit expresses itself through the body's rhythm. When the body moves, the unconscious stirs, and life itself begins to flow freely again. Master your mornings, and you reclaim your destiny, because each morning is a new encounter with your unconscious, a chance to align who you are with who you are meant to become. Why is this so important? For reasons that are both psychological and practical. First, morning movement awakens the mind. It oxygenates the brain, increases blood flow, and dramatically enhances cognitive clarity throughout the day. Second, it releases endorphins, those natural messengers of well-being that make the body feel alive. In other words, you are generating your own happiness from within, rather than depending on external conditions. Third, and this is essential, it gives you an early victory. Before the sun fully rises, you've already done something good for yourself. You've honored a promise to your own being. That act creates a symbolic pattern in the unconscious that influences the rest of the day. Carl Jung would say that every morning ritual is an encounter with the self, a small but sacred alignment between who you are and who you aspire to become. Many of the most successful individuals I've met say the same thing. Their morning discipline shapes their destiny, not because of the exercise itself, but because of what it represents. Clarity, energy, and emotional resilience to face life consciously instead of reactively. After moving the body comes the nourishment of the mind, and this is where most people fall into a deep psychological trap. They begin their day by feeding the shadow, turning on the news, scrolling through social media, and allowing their minds to be flooded with fear, comparison, and conflict. Jung would call this an unconscious identification with the collective shadow, absorbing the chaos of the world before even defining one's own mental state. Instead, devote those early hours to conscious self-education. Read something that uplifts, instructs, or awakens your deeper potential. Study a few pages of a book that expands your mind. It could be a philosophical work, a psychological reflection, or the biography of someone who overcame themselves. What matters is intention, to strengthen the mind with material that moves you closer to your own individuation. If you read for just 30 minutes every morning, you could finish a book a week. That's 52 books a year, and over 500 in a decade. Imagine the expansion of consciousness that brings. Imagine how different your inner world becomes compared to those who stopped learning once school ended. This is the quiet difference between those who grow continuously and those who remain trapped in repetition. It's not talent or luck. It's the daily decision to invest in one's inner development, especially during the morning hours when the psyche is most receptive. After nourishing both body and mind comes what Jung might call the dialogue with the self, the time of strategic reflection. The most effective individuals I've studied dedicate time each morning to think, to plan, to prioritize. They don't react, they create. They don't rush into the noise of the world. They pause to align their actions with their deeper purpose. I take out my journal and do 3 simple yet powerful things. First, I review my essential goals. Jung believed that what remains unobserved in the psyche tends to fade into the unconscious. Likewise, unexamined goals dissolve into the background of daily noise. By reviewing them every morning, you activate the subconscious to work silently toward them. You begin to notice patterns, coincidences, and opportunities that previously went unseen, not because they weren't there, but because your mind wasn't attuned to them. Second, I identify the 3 most meaningful tasks of the day. Not 10, not 20, only 3. This reflects a principle of psychological focus. A concentrated will has far more creative power than a scattered one. Most people spend their days reacting to the urgencies of others, mistaking movement for progress. They check emails, attend unnecessary meetings, respond to trivial demands, and end the day exhausted but empty. But when you choose your 3 essential tasks each morning and complete them with intention, you experience genuine transformation. You stop living as a passive participant in your life and start acting as its conscious architect. Each completed task becomes a small integration, a moment when the outer world aligns with your inner vision. Finally, I visualize my ideal day. I close my eyes for a few minutes and imagine myself carrying out those 3 essential tasks with calm precision and quiet strength. I see myself responding to challenges with patience and wisdom. I see myself ending the day in peace, proud, centered, and whole. This practice is not mere imagination. It's a form of active creation. The psyche cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experience and real action. It begins to construct what it believes. By envisioning a successful day, you're programming your unconscious to manifest it. Olympic athletes do this constantly. They rehearse perfection in the mind before expressing it through the body. Jung would say that visualization bridges the conscious and the unconscious. It allows the inner image to materialize in the outer world. When you consciously shape your mornings, body, mind, and spirit, you're not just creating better days. You're training your entire psyche to live with direction, depth, and awareness. Each dawn becomes a silent declaration. Today, I choose to live deliberately. Now, everything I've shared with you so far, hydration, exercise, reading, planning, takes about 2 hours. 2 hours that will completely change the trajectory of your life. I know what some people are thinking. I don't have 2 hours in the morning. I have to wake up early for work. I have kids. I have responsibilities. And my answer is this: we all have the same 24 hours. The question isn't whether you have time. The real question is, how important is it to you to create the life you truly want? If you say you don't have 2 hours in the morning, the solution is simple. Wake up 2 hours earlier. But I'll be tired, you might say. And yes, you'll be tired the first few days, but your body adapts incredibly fast. In a week, you'll adjust. And what you gain in mental clarity, energy, and progress towards your goals will be worth 1,000 times more than any temporary discomfort. Let me be brutally honest with you. If you're not willing to invest 2 hours each morning in yourself, in your growth, in your future, then you're not truly committed to changing your life. You're waiting for something magical to happen without doing the work that real transformation requires. And that never works. Carl Jung taught that outer change is always preceded by inner transformation. I've seen people completely reshape their financial situation, their relationships, their health, and their overall happiness simply by mastering their mornings. They didn't need a new degree, they didn't need to win the lottery, and they didn't need their external world to change. They just needed to take control of the first hours of their day. I remember a man who once came to one of my seminars. He was in a terrible situation, overweight, in debt, his marriage falling apart, and completely lost. He told me he woke up every morning dreading the day ahead. I shared with him exactly what I'm sharing with you now, the power of a conscious morning routine. 6 months later, I received an email from him. He had lost 20 kilograms, paid off half his debt, and his relationship with his wife had improved dramatically. But most importantly, he told me he now woke up each morning with enthusiasm and purpose. What had changed? Not his external circumstances, at least not at first. What changed was his morning routine. And that routine reshaped his mindset. His mindset changed his actions, and his actions transformed his results. This is the invisible chain of causation that most people never understand. They want new results, but refuse to change their habits. They crave a different life, but keep doing the same things every single day. Jung would have called this the repetition of unconscious patterns, what he called the complexes. And he warned that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. The definition of madness, after all, is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. Now let's talk about something everyone struggles with: inner resistance. That voice in your head that says, 5 more minutes, or start tomorrow, or skipping one day, doesn't matter. That voice is your mind trying to keep you in your comfort zone. It's an ancient survival mechanism that mistakenly interprets change as danger. But here's the truth: that voice lies. The real danger isn't in change. The real danger is in staying the same when your soul is begging for something different. The real danger is reaching the end of your life and realizing you never chased your dreams, never became who you were meant to be, never experienced the fullness of what was possible for you, all because you kept listening to that voice of resistance. So, how do you defeat that inner resistance? With 2 powerful tools: commitment and immediate action. Commitment means you make a decision once and for all. Not every morning, not depending on how you feel. You make an unbreakable pact with yourself to master your mornings, no matter what. And immediate action means that when your alarm goes off, your feet hit the floor in less than 5 seconds. You don't think. You don't debate. You don't negotiate. You just move. Because between the impulse to act and the action itself, your mind will always find an excuse not to do it. But if you move immediately, Your brain doesn't have time to create resistance. There's a principle Jung might have expressed in his own way, the rule of the 5 seconds. If you wait more than 5 seconds between decision and action, your rational mind will step in with doubt and fear. But if you act within those 5 seconds, you bridge the gap between intention and creation before resistance can take hold. That's how transformation begins, not with wishful thinking, but with decisive movement. Now I want to talk about something much deeper. The spiritual and emotional impact of mastering your mornings isn't just about productivity or getting more done. It's about something far more essential. It's about self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, especially a difficult one, like waking up early when you'd rather stay in bed, you're sending a powerful message to your unconscious mind. I matter. My goals matter. My promises to myself are sacred. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you send the opposite message. I don't really matter. My goals aren't that important. My words carry no weight. Over time, these messages accumulate. You either build the identity of someone who does what they say they'll do, someone with integrity, someone trustworthy, even when no one is watching, or you build the identity of someone who talks a lot but acts little, someone whose words lose meaning because they never turn into real change. Which one do you want to become? Let me share something personal. There was a time in my 20s when my life was a complete mess. I had no direction. I worked jobs I hated, barely paid my rent, and every night I promised myself that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I'd start working out. Tomorrow I'd start reading. Tomorrow I'd plan my future. But when tomorrow came, I did none of those things. And with each broken promise, my self-esteem eroded a little more. Until one day, I realized no one was coming to save me. No miracle, no stroke of luck, no magical opportunity was going to appear and transform my life. If anything was going to change, I had to change. And it had to start. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after the holidays, but now. So that night, I set my alarm 2 hours earlier than usual. And when it rang the next morning, every cell in my body wanted to hit snooze and go back to sleep. But I told myself, this matters. This defines who I am. And I got up. The next day, I did it again and again. After a week, something shifted. It was no longer just a routine. It became part of my identity. I was someone who mastered his mornings. I was someone who kept his commitments. I was someone in control of his own life. And from that moment, everything began to change. Not overnight, but gradually, consistently, inevitably. My career advanced, my finances improved, my relationships deepened, my health transformed. All because I started with one thing: mastering my mornings. Now, I want to give you a few additional strategies to make your morning routine even more powerful. First, prepare everything the night before: your workout clothes, your water bottle, the book you're going to read, your planning journal. Leave it all ready so that when you wake up, you don't have to think. You just act. Decision fatigue is real. Every small choice consumes mental energy. So eliminate unnecessary decisions from your morning by preparing the night before. Second, create what I call anchoring rituals. These are small actions that signal your mind it's time to step into your morning state. For example, make your bed immediately after waking up. This simple act has a deep psychological effect. It gives you an instant victory, puts you in a state of order and achievement. And even if your day goes off track, you come home to a made bed. A small reminder that you began your day with discipline. Third, remove temptations. If your phone is your biggest distraction, don't charge it next to your bed. Leave it in another room. Make it physically hard to access what sabotages you and easy to access what supports you. This is environmental design, and it's incredibly powerful. Fourth, find an accountability partner. Tell someone about your commitment to mastering your mornings. Share your wins with them. When you know someone's paying attention, it becomes much harder to quit. Public commitment dramatically increases follow-through. Fifth, celebrate small victories. Each morning, you complete your routine. Acknowledge it. Give yourself credit. Feel proud. Don't minimize your progress by saying, "It's just one morning." No, it's one morning where you defeated the weaker version of yourself. One morning where you proved you have what it takes. That deserves recognition. Now be realistic. There will be hard mornings. There will be days when your alarm rings and every part of you wants to stay asleep. There will be mornings when something unexpected happens and your routine gets disrupted. That's life. Perfection isn't the goal. Consistency is. If you fall off your routine one day, don't use it as an excuse to give up completely. Don't fall into the all-or-nothing trap that says, "Well, I messed up today, so I might as well quit altogether." That thought is a deception of the ego. Instead, simply return to your routine the next morning, without guilt, without drama. Just return to what you know works. That's how transformation happens, as Carl Jung taught us, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, disciplined act of honoring your own word, day after day, until your actions reflect your highest self. Remember, you're not seeking perfection, you're seeking progress. If you stay consistent with your morning routine even 80% of the time, you'll already belong to the top 10% of the most productive and fulfilled people in the world. That's all it takes, not 100%. Just reasonable, sustainable consistency. And here's something Carl Jung would want you to deeply understand. Mastering your mornings is not an end in itself. It is a pathway towards self-realization. The true purpose is to live the life your inner self longs for, to become the version of you that your unconscious already knows you can be. It's about bringing your inner potential into the world, creating positive change in your family, your surroundings, and within your soul. When you master your mornings, you don't just improve your productivity, you elevate your peace of mind, your confidence, your health, and your relationships. Because when you become more conscious, you naturally become more present, patient, and loving. Imagine how your life would feel if for the next 6 months you completely mastered your mornings. Imagine who you would become, what you would accomplish, how proud you would feel of yourself. Now ask yourself, would it be worth waking up a little earlier? Is it worth the discomfort of changing your habits? Absolutely. Life is too brief to live unconsciously, reacting to everything around you as if you were merely surviving. You deserve more than that. You deserve to awaken each day with enthusiasm and meaning. You deserve to feel that you are directing your own fate. You deserve the quiet power that comes from consistently creating your reality instead of waiting for it to change by chance. And it all begins with a simple but profound decision. The decision to master your mornings. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. In this exact moment, as you hear these words, decide. Commit to yourself. Say it aloud if you must. I will master my mornings. I will take control of my life. I begin tomorrow. Practice it this week. Don't wait for all the answers. Don't wait to feel motivated. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Just start. Wake up 30 minutes earlier tomorrow. Do something that nurtures your spirit. Read a few pages of a meaningful book. Move your body gently. Plan your day consciously and observe how different you feel. And if this message resonates with you, if something inside you recognizes that this is exactly what you needed to hear today, then I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. Because the wisdom that awaits you might be the very thing your soul was calling for. Let me leave you with one final thought. You are one decision away from a completely different life. You don't need to rebuild your existence overnight. You don't need to transform everything at once. You only need to change one thing: how you begin your day. Because the way you begin your day determines the way you live your life. The most conscious and successful individuals, leaders, artists, thinkers, creators, all share something in common. They are the masters of their mornings. They don't let the world dictate how they should feel or what they should do. They take immediate and complete control over their energy, focus, and direction. And now, you have the same awareness they do. You have the same inner tools. The only difference between where you are and where you want to be is consistent action. Nothing more. Not special talent, not luck, not external validation. Just the will to rise each morning and do what your higher self knows you must do, even when you don't feel like it. So let me ask you one final time. Are you ready? Are you ready to take control of your life? Are you ready to stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the conscious creator of your destiny? Are you ready to awaken with purpose, live with intention, and rest in fulfillment? If the answer is yes, then you already know what to do. Set your alarm tonight. Prepare everything you need. And when it rings tomorrow morning, don't think. Don't negotiate with yourself. Just rise. Because that very moment, that simple act of rising when your mind resists, is where transformation begins. Remember, you are one decision away from completely transforming your life. Decide now. Act today. Master your mornings, and you will conquer.